Afternoon, Muttonistas, back at Stockport Station again. Manchester City are away at Tottenham in the FA Cup in Friday in 2 days' time. You'll see that video before this one, but it's given me a great opportunity to take a cockney odyssey and make a video that some of you Muttonistas have been clamouring for. So join me for a Guinness-fueled cockney odyssey touring pubs in London.
The 1448 Northern service to Manchester Piccadilly, Eton Chapel, Leamington and Manchester Piccadilly.
Right, Muttonistas, on our way down. And I've decided we're going to get the ball rolling on the train. It's not really the normal stuff I have or drink, but I've got a cheap upgrade, so I may as well get stuck in. You know what I'm like, Muttonistas. And I've gone for the cheese plate, and rather unusually, a lager. I don't drink much lager, but this one, those of you who've watched my Spanish videos will be familiar with. And this Muttonistas Mal is the authentic Madrid lager. It is easily the best seller in Madrid. Don't be fooled by what you might call well-marketed alternatives that have been popping up in British pubs of late. That is clean, crisp, just a hint of malt, a delicious accompaniment to cheese, or something I have in Spain on a hot day. As always, I always have a little bit of work to do, so I'll be getting on with that, and I'll see you when we're down in London. Oh man, I've had to pass up a stall selling biltong, the greatest beer snack known to man, and go past the Euston tap without going in. But we're in a rush because I took a later train than I had originally planned, and we've got some serious porter and stout drinking to do. So, Muttonistas, I'll see you at the pub shortly. Right, Muttonistas, I have come well out of my way to come here. I'm 50 minutes later than I thought I would have been. Maybe something to do with the transport, the traffic and so on and so forth. But I've heard the Guinness is so good here that it's well worth coming out of your way to visit here. Or at least I hope so. It's not the easiest place to get to, I'll tell you, if you're coming by public transport. Okay, Muttonistas, here we are. Have we found the Holy Grail? Have we reached a Guinness drinker's paradise in London? Well, all will be revealed in a minute. But first of all, I'd just like to mention a Muttonista John kindly got me a pint in and was keeping tabs on my journey, which is a good thing for you all to do if you want to come and meet me, because I do post on YouTube and Instagram as to how my journey's going and where I'm going. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. I am gagging for this. Yeah, and as English pints go, that is pretty good. I have to say, it isn't as good as the stuff I was drinking in Cork last week, but how could it possibly be so? I'm not sure whether I'd call this the best Guinness in London or the best in England, because the place I'm going to next, Sheepshaven Bay, and Mulligan's and the station in Manchester will provide a good run for their money in terms of how good the pint is. But I'm happy to be here, and I'd say, just on the initial taste, that it might be worth coming out of your way to come here, but let's see how we get through the rest of it. So, coming towards the end of the first pint, and actually the pint improved as I started drinking through it. I'm not sure what to make about the temperature. It's a little cold, but not terribly cold. And in terms of the lining, you can see that's decent. And in terms of the flavour, it's pretty solid. I've no idea how short the lines are here, but what I can tell you is that nearly the whole pub is on it, and that is always a good sign. Okay, I'll neck this Muttonistas and try and catch up on my schedule and head off to Sheepshaven Bay, which is another massive Uber ride away, of course, in the small city of London. Right, Muttonistas, pub number 2, Sheepshaven Bay. Now, a lot of reviewers rank the Old Chele and here as being the best 2 Guinness pubs in London. I'm not so sure, only time will tell, but I have to say that really was an interesting pub, that Old Chele. I've never been in a pub like that where everybody's on the Guinness. It's like Spot the Punter without Guinness. Anyway, I know this is a safe bet because I've been here a lot, presented a lot of clips for my football videos from here, so no reason to think that the pint will be anything other than excellent. Now, look at that, Muttonistas. I have never seen anything like that before. I don't know what the device is called, but it's a spectacular display of the Guinness settling. Really does make me gag for it, so I hope it's not going to cause me to drink that first one a bit too quickly. Okay, Muttonistas, Sheepshaven Bay, what a pub and what a commitment to quality. Now, you know I keep harping on about how it's the whole operation, taking care of the Guinness, short, clean lines, and punters on it all the time. Well, okay, not as many punters are on it here as was the case at the Old Shillelagh, but this looks good. I think this is going to be a better pint. And what's more, the barman slightly overfilled my pint, and he insisted that I hand it back, and he poured me a fresh one. What a commitment to quality, Muttonistas. Yes, a bit on the cold side, but otherwise right on the money. I'm afraid this edges the Old Chele, even though it's a lovely pint and a lovely pub. And for those of you obsessed about, I know you call it shtick, I don't like that word, the lining on the side of the glass, it is superb. Now, I've been to this pub quite a few times, and it's great for drinking in before football matches, usually against Arsenal, I have to admit, and they've never had a problem with me turning up in colours, which is nice, and you get a genteel crowd here, it's not rough. But I have to say, this is one of the best pints they served me. I've had some good ones in the past, but this is a real corker, a real creamer, as you might say. So wow, Muttonistas. What a fantastic pint that's been tonight. But I'm going to have to rip myself away from here and visit a pub called Clapham North, which is conveniently near a tube station, to try their range. They contacted me quite a long time ago, and I feel they're overdue a visit. But wow, what a great pint this was. Okay, Muttonistas, this is going to be a video that's split into 2 days, and the final pub of day 1 is Clapham North. Now, this is a pub that contacted me when I had very few followers, so I feel it's well overdue a visit. Besides which, I see it's a Young's pub. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the tied house system in the UK. I think they used to have their own little independent brewery and that's changed. But Young's do have some good stuff. I like some of their ales. And I think, if I remember correctly, they have a very interesting cask chocolate stout. Okay, Muttonistas, we are finally at Clapham North, late as usual, sorry about that, and I'm going to do a little tasting session here. A few interesting casks and a few interesting kegs. People who have known me for a long time or viewed me for a long time know that I'm always a little sceptical about kegs. But I'm going to try 2 casks, 2 kegs, and of course the Guinness. And of course, the 2 kegs I have my eye on, well, we've seen neck oil in a million places, but it's the Hepcat Session IPA and the Stonewood Pacific Ale. Okay, isn't that nice, Muttonistas? A little table reserved for the Primemutton himself. And I'm going to start with the Peckham Pale Ale. That's a very nice session IPA, that is. It's not that hoppy and actually quite malty, which is a little bit unusual for an IPA, but pleasant enough. Very sessionable, I'd say. And I did get a very slight finish of citrus and the tiniest hint of caramel. Quite a nice ale. And now for the 5 Points Pale Ale, and viewers can see behind me that there's a big screen with football. It's big on football. They're not actually playing it with volume. There's music in the background. No idea whether that varies from game to game. Anyway, this is a beer from the East London Brewery, the previous one being from Peckham Rye. Again, it's a very, very sessionable pale ale, decent in terms of the amount of hops in the brew, although Muttonistas, you know, I like them intensely hoppy. But I have a suspicion the keg ales are going to come up trumps in terms of hoppiness. And I think out of the 2, I preferred the 5 Points. But I suspect that those might be guest ales, they might not be on when you're here. I suppose if you dash out as soon as the video's published, they might be. Anyway, now something you don't see me do very often at the pub, have a glass of water. I just want to cleanse my palate a bit, having had Guinness and cask ales, before I go on to the keg ales. It's slightly unusual, because back in the day, the hoppiest beers were always the casks, but I have a feeling they're going to be the kegs here. Now then, Muttonistas, I have a suspicion that the sparklers were off for the cask ales. Now, a lot of real ale aficionados are really into that. I actually prefer the sparklers to be on. Not that I like it to be effervescent or anything, Anyway, talking of effervescence, we've moved on to the keg ales. So, first up, Stone and Wood, described as a West Coast or a Pacific IPA. Now, I caught something on the label that said it's Australian, so that would be the east coast of Australia, so I'm not sure what the difference is. In America, that would be exactly the sort of ale I like, with the citrus and tropical fruit flavours, but with a dry hoppy finish. But let's see how this one goes. Yeah, not too dissimilar, but a little less hoppy, a little lighter, but still quite fruity. Now next up, Hepcat. I believe the brewery is incredibly close to this Clapham North pub, and the barman seemed to be a big fan of it. Not sure how it's going to taste, but it is pale ale. It is supposed to be quite hoppy. Yeah, that's quite pleasant. More of a summer's day drink, I'd say, and not enough hops for me, but I'm sure a lot of you who like less hopped ales will be right at home with this. It's clean, refreshing, and it does have some hoppiness. Don't get me wrong, it's not hopless. And finally, from the kegs, Steady Rolling Man from the Dare Brewery. Now, I've got high hopes for this because I just had a little peek at their website and they describe their beers as being ridiculously hoppy. I wouldn't say ridiculously hoppy, but for a hazy pale ale, I really like that, and that's my choice from the kegs. Anyway, even though I have to watch Liverpool winning on the TV behind me, on to the review that you're all looking for. It's the review that the management brought me in for. It's their Guinness. Now, I'm going to have a little scour of the pub because at my end of the pub I didn't see too many people on it, which obviously makes a big difference. And maybe it's a little unfair to compare it to that marvellous pint I had at Sheepshaven Bay. But we'll have a little scour around and I'll report back to you. Oh, and since it's so good, I'll finish this half pint of Dare. I'm not going to finish the other two because I want to be able to review the Guinness with a reasonably clean palate, Muttonistas. And now, Muttonistas, the review that the management brought me here for, and the review I think you all want to see, the Guinness. The manager takes great pride in his pint, although having been to two of the most famous London pubs for Guinness, I don't know, is this going to hold up? Let's hope so. A little cold, but not too cold, and this is actually quite good. I have to say, this is the best pint in the pub. The cask ales, you know, they were decent, and if you like them without a sparkler on, I don't know if it's by chance that that's the case, they're quite good. The keg ones, I only really liked the last one, but this is good. Not as... So, as I'm coming towards the end of the pint, my thoughts on the Clapham North pub are it's a bit of an all-rounder in terms of what it provides. Some people on the Guinness, some people on lager, not so many on the ales, I have to say, although a few on the keg ales. And as for the Guinness itself, it's a solid pint actually. I mean, nowhere near as good as in Ireland, not in the same league as the two previous pubs, but it's decent. If you're in Clapham, yeah, I think this is a good bet. And I was pleasantly surprised that of the beers that I tried, the Guinness was the best bet. Anyway, Muttonistas, that's it for tonight. We are going to roll on this video until tomorrow and bring you a bit more of the black stuff. And even if you're lucky, a little bit of pale ale as well. See you tomorrow, lads. Okay, Muttonistas, you're going to wonder, what the hell are you doing at Euston again? Are you going back home early? Are you chickening out of the vlog? No, this is day 2 of the vlog. And when I saw the biltong stand right at the beginning of the video when I arrived in London, I couldn't take it out of my mind. It's called Biltong Boss, and they've got a wide variety of biltongs and a snack that I really need, and you'll see why later.
Talking to me hungry, you've got original flavours there, the garlic and pepper, mild chilli, sweet hot chutney, peri peri, and like smoky barbecue flavour at the end there.
Okay.
Snapsticks and venison biltong,
Okay.
turkey and dry balls.
Okay. And what's hotter, the peri peri or the beef, the chili beef?
That's mild there, they
Yeah.
build as they go up that way. So
Okay.
these two are the hotter ones.
Okay. Smoky ghost, is that a type of chili?
The ghost pepper is, but they don't actually use that. It's Naga chili, which is a cousin of. Yeah.
Okay.
It's got a bit of chipotle. Yeah.
Okay, Muttonistas, if that's the hottest, that's the one I'm having. Right, Muttonistas, first pub of day 2, the Arch House from Unspac and Hobday, yes, the home of London Black. When I did my Chelsea 4 City 4 video, I did feature this pub, but I just had the London Black then. Today, I'm going to try all of their range and select 2 pints at the end, but I think I'm pretty sure what one of them's going to be. Okay, Muttonistas. Now, remember at Euston Station, the biltong, this is where it comes in handy. I've mentioned it before, but this pub, you've heard of BYO in terms of restaurants bringing your own booze. This pub, it's bring your own food. And biltong for me, by a country mile, the best snack to have with beer. Now, a couple of Muttonistas are here with me. They've tried it. They said it's a bit spicy, but that's the way I like it. Yes, that is quite tongue-warming, I'd say. Okay, on to the lime and sea salt sour, as beautifully described behind the bar. This is quite unusual for me. I really don't know what I'm going to expect. I like that. That is so unusual, though. Salt and lime, and as you said, a sort of margarita in a beer. Very, very refreshing, and it's not so sweet. I thought this would be sickly sweet, because recently in Bristol, I had a red fruit sour, and it was like, well, a cross between beer and Ribena. But this is on the money, this is. And I think that deserves another piece of biltong. Right, next Muttonistas, the Bermondsey Pale. Now, this brew came about actually because of, shall we say, the B word, referring to recent constitutional changes in the UK, and because of the affordability of hops. So instead of all these American and continental hops, they've gone back to using British hops. So this is very much an old school IPA. Both these beers are about 4%, and whilst I prefer these types of IPA served in a cask, it's quite a good example of a keg one. In fact, I've been very impressed. I've liked everything I've had so far, but then again, I thought I would. Yeah, nicely hopped, that one. Anyway, onwards and upwards towards the stronger brews. So, next 2 beers coming up, we have a wheat beer and we have something called a Kolsch-style lager. I'm not quite sure about that because you know, Muttonistas, I'm not really a lager drinker. Well, obviously you see me put it away when City go to Germany. So the wheat beer comes in at 4% and the Kolsch lager 4.5%. A little bit closer to what people would drink in the continent, but still not quite as strong, so it'll be interesting to see how the flavour is compared to those German-style lagers I've had abroad. But anyway, enough of me waffling, let's find out what a Kolsch-style beer is all about.
So a Kolsch-style lager is from an area in Germany called Cologne. And effectively, long story short, it is hot fermented rather than cold fermented like a normal lager. So your average Helles, Pilsner, lager that you see in your macro pubs in the UK are cold fermented, which decreases bitterness, creates a more crisp style of beer, which is what the average consumer expects from a lager. Whereas a Kolsch style lager is hop fermented, so you get a lot more fruit flavour from the hops and a lot more esters. So it's almost kind of like an ale and a lager mishmashed together, because it's fermented at an ale temperature, but the malt base, the hops, everything else is all very much a lager ingredient.
Okay, I might have perchance had this style of beer before, but I think it's new, so join me on the adventure and we're going to give it a try. Okay, wheat beer first. Should be a straightforward taste, this. Yeah, a pleasant example of a wheat beer. I wouldn't go wild about it, but one thing that is very good about it is that it is not sweet. I have a problem with most wheat beers just being massively too sweet, so this is something I'm happy with, and it has that little bit more hoppiness about it. This comes in at 4%, so it's a lot lighter than some of the continental wheat beers that you might be used to. Okay, and again, another quick munch on the biltong. Right, on to the Kosh beer. I may, as I said, have accidentally had this before, but I'd never heard of this style of brewing because I'm not a lager drinker, but let's give it a go. Yeah, this comes in at 4.5%. It's quite dry and pleasant. I'm not sure I can identify the hops in this. I'd like it to be a bit stronger and have a bit more punch, but I would say it's actually a bit more hoppy than a normal German lager. So it's a bit of a cross, in my opinion, between a German-style lager and an IPA. But that might well be the intention of brewers who brew Kosh beer. Very light and refreshing again. Anyway, we're going to head back to the bar and start going on to the stronger ales, and in particular those darker ales. Now then, Muttonistas, on to the stronger stuff, and one I've been really looking forward to try here, the Cask IPA, a West Coast style IPA at 6%, which is actually quite a good strength for that sort of beer. If you remember, I keep harping on about Jaipur, which has a huge following, which is 5.9%. Let's see whether any of those flavours are replicated here, or whether it's a slightly different style. Yeah, it is a different style. There's a slight hint of grapefruit, a slight hint of something a bit more tropical, but I think there's quite a lot of citra in here, and you know, Muttonistas, I really love that. And so you have this beer on cask and keg, so what would be the difference in flavour, or would it just be that the keg is a little bit more effervescent?
No, the keg will be very slightly more bright, with a carbonation that will really move it around the inside of your mouth. You get arguably more flavour in some sense, but the cask being served at a cellar temperature, you will get way more flavour from the hops. So our West Coast IPA is Summit, Equinox and Enigma hops, so there is no citra in it.
Okay.
However, you'll get quite a lot of citrus grapefruit notes from the temperature of the liquid from the cask with those hops.
Okay. So none of the hops themselves would have provided that citra taste.
So those hops do give fruit flavours, but not quite as much of a citrus hit that the citra hop itself would. The hops that we use in our West Coast IPA are quite bittering with fleshy grapefruit kind of flavour rather than a sweet fruit kind of flavour.
Well, there you go, an education, Muttonistas, and that has raced to the top of my list. This keg porter is going to have to be something to make it one of my 2 pints at the end. Now, keg porters without the nitrogen, I think they're quite hard to produce, and sometimes they can be a little bit treacly. But I was informed that this was the brewery's first brew, or one of their first brews. So it's obviously sold well throughout the years, and, well, let's give it a try. Well, it's not sweet, which is a good start. I mean, obviously, all porters and all beers will have sweetness to a degree, but again, it's the keg porters without the nitrogen, they're not my thing. Some of you might like, for example, having bottled Guinness. Now, this is a lot better than bottled Guinness, I'd say, but I don't like the consistency of that beer. So, okay, that's not bad. I've loved every beer except for one. And of course, fans of port and stout do not have to worry in this establishment because the king of British stouts resides here. Okay, Muttonistas, I think you knew this was coming. As always at breweries, when I taste, I choose a couple of pints at the end, and it had to be this one to start with, London Black. As I say, better than Guinness in Britain. Okay, the top Guinness in Ireland, maybe I'd say that's better, but here, this is the king of porters. And I'm lucky enough to have met a few Muttonistas here who also share my views on this drink. So I'm going to salute all Muttonistas and try and split the B. How is that?
Muttonistas!
Anyway, I'm sure some of you are wondering, how does the biltong, the spicy biltong, go with London Black? Because this obviously is very important since I love London Black and I love spicy biltong. Okay, let's give the mouth a little swish with London Black. Yeah, that is a great combination. It brings out the flavours of the beer. For me, stouts and dark beers don't actually go well with food usually, but this is a great combination. But to be honest, Muttonistas, I'd say biltong with any good beer is a great combo. Okay, Muttonistas, great fun tonight at the Arch House by Ansbach and Hobday, and lots of great banter, crack, chat, whatever you want to call it, with fellow Muttonistas. Anyway, the second pint I'm going to have is called The IPA by Ansbach and Hobday, 6%. I tried it earlier, and it's a really good example of a Pacific IPA. Very much to my taste. I couldn't identify the hops because it's a little bit different, because it does have a bit of citrus about it, but a little bit of a fruity aftertaste, which is a very well-crafted Pacific IPA, if I may say so. And this beer did recently win an award as the best IPA in London, and I can see why. Absolutely, I can see why. A little bit of biltong. And by the way, standing at the bar, I was completely unaware of the fact that they sell packets of biltong. Even though you can bring your own food in here, I didn't realise they did that. But in fairness, the manager, who tried it as well, along with all the Muttonistas here in the pub, thought that the ghost chili biltong, which is actually made from Naga chilies, but hot and spicy enough, was actually a better bet than the packets they sell here. I don't want to discourage you from buying them, to be honest, but this really was good. So I don't know where else they sell, but the place I bought them from was Euston Station, so check them out if you're there. Anyway, it goes beautifully with the beer. And I am going to have to drag myself away from this mighty fine establishment just in the way that the MPs drag the Speaker to his chair in the House of Commons after every general election. Onwards and upwards to the next pub. And yes, Muttonistas, I timed my visit well. Look at how busy it is now. Right, Muttonistas, this might be the last or penultimate pub. We had such a great time in the tap room at the Arch House of Ansbach and Hobday, great London Black and a good range altogether. But now we have moved on to the posh part of London, to Soho, to try the Guinness at the Devonshire Arms. Okay, Muttonistas, I admit I went to the wrong Devonshire, the Devonshire Arms instead of the Devonshire, but we've ordered an Uber, and it was a blessing in disguise to meet Muttonistas there and have what was quite a reasonable pint. But as you've all said, this could be the second coming of Christ when I try the pint at the Devonshire. Okay, Muttonistas, after that slight and briefly unexpected detour and cock-up, well, it wasn't a cock-up because the pint was okay and it was great to meet some more Muttonistas. We have finally arrived at the Devonshire and not the Devonshire Arms in Soho. This is a part of London I would never normally consider coming out drinking, but so many of you have recommended that I come here, and I believe the restaurant inside is so phenomenally popular that you have to book ages in advance. Anyway, I'm here for a pint. Let's see how it tastes. Is it the Holy Grail that some of you are suggesting it is? Right, Muttonistas, second pint. Now, I didn't review the first pint properly because I was gagging for one, and we were in one of those friendly pubs where you talk to people rather than looking at your mobile phone. Okay, call me a hypocrite because I'm actually filming from my mobile phone, but let's give this one a proper review, lads. Yeah, that's good, that's really good. I would still give the Sheepshaven Bay and Mornington Crescent the edge over this, but I put this on a tie with the Old Chele for Guinness, which is saying something for somewhere in central London. And I have to say, Muttonistas, this is slipping down nicely. Virtually the whole pub is on it, and yes, that is very, very important. And if you can mention miles an hour, kilometres per hour, how about pints an hour? We're on 3 pints an hour here. Okay, Muttonistas, having a great time here at the Devonshire. I can't remember where I was last up to when I was last concentrating on my YouTube blog as opposed to my Instagram. Maybe an embarrassing admission, but I serve it up straight. When I go to pubs, drink and review, I drink the beers. I don't sip the top of them and leave them. Anyway, please remember to keep liking, keep sharing, keep subscribing. And it's goodbye from me, the Primemutton. Goodbye from Alex and Alex.
Goodbye.
And most of all, most importantly, always remember, you can't beat a bit of mutton.